Hello, in this video I'm going to talk about the good and the bad regarding the purchase, setup, and use of the PROFORM Trainer 8.7 Treadmill. This video is not a complete assembly video, but I will point out what I think are a few of the tricky steps in the setup process, and I'll refer you to another video that shows some of the assembly of a similar model with the same steps. I also talk about what some might call deceptive advertising and misleading instructions associated with many of the PROFORM treadmills. I bought my treadmill at Costco.com for a sale price of $749. That price included delivery and setup. Now you can opt to have setup done at the time of delivery or schedule it within 30 days of delivery. I opted to set up my own treadmill. From what I can tell, this model, the PROFORM Trainer 8.7, is a branded model for just a few major retailers, primarily Costco. I also see that it's available on Bed Bath & Beyond website, but for a higher price. I personally haven't seen it available at stores such as Dick's Sporting Goods, Academy Sports, Amazon, or Walmart. The PROFORM website doesn't list it for sale either. The closest model I've seen on the PROFORM website is the Carbon TXL model, which was listed for $999. It's a slight upgrade, having a 60-inch deck versus a 55, a 12-degree incline option versus a 10-degree, 3-horsepower motor versus a 2.75. Both have a 300-weight capacity. It lists free delivery, but not free setup. Also, I've noticed a lot of these lower to mid-tier machines do not come with a heart rate monitor feature built in, but they do offer a Bluetooth connection option, so you can use your own monitor. As I said, I opted to do my own setup. I consider myself fairly handy, and working alone, it took me still 2 hours to complete, which was a little longer than I thought it would. One person can do it, but I recommend that if you can, you have 2 people. Or you must have a certain amount of strength and dexterity. The unit is big, it's heavy, it weighs about 220 pounds, and you do have to lift it occasionally to unpackage it and manipulate it as you build it, particularly when you rotate it on its side to install the feet, also when you install the hydraulic lift assist. So having an extra person around to help during certain steps definitely helps. As you can see, there are a lot of parts. It takes a while just to unpack everything. It seems to be fairly well packed, and I didn't experience any problems with damaged parts. The 2 young delivery men were fully expecting to have to assemble my treadmill, and they thanked me profusely when I told them they didn't have to, especially since it was Thanksgiving Eve. The instructions are pretty good, much better than many other products I've assembled, and the box included a full set of all the necessary tools, and they were of decent quality too. I will say that if you have a socket set, get it out, because it'll help in tightening some of the larger bolts. Just a few quick tips about the assembly if you choose to do it yourself. Right away on step number 2, the instructions say tip the treadmill onto one side and install 4 base pads, or feet as I call them, onto the frame. There are 4 shipping screws that you need to remove and discard before installing the feet. So my first heads up is that removing these 4 screws is not necessarily easy. They were machine screws that were likely put in with some power equipment to cut the holes. 2 of mine came out with medium effort. The other 2, after 3 turns, wouldn't budge with the screwdriver. The Phillips-style screw head started to strip. I had to use some large channel lock pliers to slowly and carefully unscrew them the rest of the way. I was afraid they were going to shear right off with the force I had to use, but they didn't. The second tip is once you start screwing on the feet with the provided panhead screws, do not over-tighten them past being snug. The inside of each base pad, i.e. foot, is rubber, and you risk having the head of the screw pull right through the foot. A third tip is once you have the treadmill on its side for step number 2, there's no reason why you couldn't perform step number 6, which is installing the 2 wheels onto the frame. I'm not sure why they suggest you put the wheels on after you lower the unit back down into its upright position, which requires you to lift the treadmill frame again. And lastly, on step number 9, it's not apparent by the instructions, but the console base has 2 molded pins about 3 inches long that should be inserted into the 2 holes on the handrails when you position the console base into place. They appear not to fit at first, but they will and should be gently flexed into the large holes that go through the handrails. You should see the molded pins from the underside of the handrails. Then you screw the unit secure from the bottom of the handrails with 2 screws. Everything else is pretty straightforward. I had watched a video on how to assemble another PROFORM model, and the instructions were very similar. I recommend watching the same video before you start. It'll save you a lot of time in the end. The YouTube channel is called Mastering Mayhem, and the video is titled PROFORM Premier 1300 Treadmill Assembly and Setup. Now I'll mention a few of the cons regarding the product. I had done some research before buying the treadmill. In my opinion, the breakdown is as follows. You can get an entry-level treadmill in the $400 to $800 range, a mid-tier treadmill in the $800 to $1,300 range, and a high-end unit above that going well into the $2,000 and $3,000 range. Some of those price differences account for what I call bells and whistles, but a lot of it has to do with the treadmill's physical size, power, and quality. So like most anything else, you can end up getting what you pay for. But that being said, I also believe in not overbuying as well. If you don't need it, you shouldn't buy it. Prior to purchasing, I had read some comments in the reviews of this model, the Trainer 8.7, and other PROFORM models that the product imaging on the boxes and advertisements was misleading, primarily when it comes to the display consoles. In many examples, the packaging and advertising shows what appear to be large, full-size color displays with impressive TV-like interfaces, when in fact, upon closer inspection, what you often see is someone with a tablet like an iPad strategically placed on top of the unit's console, which gives the illusion of it being built into the unit itself. To be fair, most of those images do include some very fine print that says tablet not included, but for the casual observer and for someone who's trying to make a buying decision based on these features, in my opinion, it's being done on purpose to mislead the consumer. Just because it's done all the time doesn't make it right. The second main complaint that I had read about regarding this unit was how both the instruction manual and the additional product labeling tells you that you must activate the treadmill via the iFit app or website. This is probably the #1 complaint that people have regarding this product and other PROFORM treadmills. I had to find a, quote, hack on the website to get around this so-called requirement. It's true that when you first start up the unit, the display system seems to be locked into a hello message. You can't do anything. Out of curiosity, I wanted to see what the iFit website would say, so I created an account. I didn't give them any other information other than my name and email address. The instructions say go to the ifit.com/activate webpage. Now, I've been a software developer for 35 years, and I couldn't figure out how to get to any function on the iFit's website to activate my machine. As a matter of fact, it went into what I call an input loop, simply asking for the same information over and over again. In my opinion, it's an obvious attempt to get you to sign up for iFit, which has a monthly fee. So what's the hack? It's simply to press the iFit button on the machine for about 20 seconds. That'll unlock the console and allow you to use it in manual mode without iFit at all. Once you do this, it'll stay in manual mode each time you turn on your machine. Nowhere in the manual or on iFit's website does it say this. It's totally bogus in my opinion. Like I said, I had read about this prior to buying the unit, and I knew the hack. But I can only imagine the frustration and disappointment for those that haven't or don't have the knowledge or resources to figure it out. The manual does say if you don't have a smartphone or a PC with internet connection, you can call the 800 number for assistance. I can only imagine the nightmare having to do that as well. So what's the bottom line? I'd say so far I'm happy with the purchase. I have owned another treadmill, and this seems to be similar to that in terms of features and quality. I'm 5'10", about 170 pounds, and this will work for me, whether it's walking or jogging. It's not an upscale spa-like quality unit, but it's fairly quiet and seems to have adequate power. The motor does make some noise when adjusting the incline, but I can live with that. All in all, I'd say it's good quality for the mid-tier treadmill. I hope this video was helpful. If so, please consider subscribing. Thank you.